Welcome to Think College. My name's Maria Piewanski, and I'm delighted to have with us a colleague, Amy Dwyer from Transcend. Amy's expertise is in job and career development for students with intellectual disabilities. So, Amy, thank you so much for coming today.
I'm glad to be here.
What's the difference, Amy, between unpaid work experiences and paid work experience?
You know, they're both very good, and a lot of times it depends on where the student is. If a student has never had any exposure, they've never tried anything outside of the school, then they need to probably have some unpaid work experience to get an idea, to get some exposure to that. I think what we need to focus on while students are still in school, it is important that eventually, while they still have that support, can get a paid job, because there are so many differences between unpaid experiences and paid experiences. I've seen a lot of school systems where they have their standard, 6 or 8 job experiences that they rotate students through, which is great if you are someone who is just a student who's trying to figure out, what do I like? What don't I like? I have no idea what the world of work is. This is great to try it out. But you have to keep in mind those students didn't choose those jobs. They know they're time limited. They are placed there, they do what they're told, and then they're pulled. And then they do the next one and do the next one. And a lot of times I've heard teachers say, I get somebody a paid job, or I get somebody a job, and they're not really motivated, to do that. Well, part of that motivation is they need to be part of that process. They need to feel ownership toward that job. It needs to match their interest and sort of be something that they enjoy and want to do. Also, the expectations of an unpaid job are very different than a paid job. Like when you're going and rotating just for an internship, that manager knows you're not getting paid. There are tasks that you won't do. The expectations are different, and you are seen differently in that environment. You're not actually a full team member there because you're the intern or you're just rotating through, versus you're there equal to everybody else, getting the pay, and then what do you do with a paycheck? I mean, right there is motivation that we all understand. Yeah. We go to work. So they need to understand what you do with that. At the same time, how do you leave a job appropriately to move on to another job? They don't learn that with unpaid job experiences because they're put on, they're pulled off. There's no transition training there. And, research has shown really the only indicator of success in paid work after school is if they've had paid work during school. Because you have to go through the orientation, you have to follow every single rule the way everybody else does, and that's not what happens in unpaid. So if they can do that while they're in school and there's still teachers there helping them through that process so they understand how to do all that and how important it is on a paid job, they're not going to get that until they're out on their own, and then it's going to be more difficult. So I think it is important that they have that experience with a real paid job and the benefits of having a paid job, the paychecks and that kind of thing. So,
Amy, you've really made a very compelling case for working hard towards finding paid work experiences for students. So assuming that people are listening to this and saying, I want to do this, then where do they start, Amy?
Yeah, because it seems like a very daunting task to just go out and start knocking on doors and saying, will you hire? Because if you go that route of just knocking on random doors and saying, wow, will you hire my student with a disability? They're going to say no over and over and over again. You have that door slammed in your face, and then you feel like, well, this is the worst job ever. And it's not the way it has to be. I think you need to begin with really getting to know the students, which is something that teachers are excellent at. Yeah. They know how to accommodate them. They know what triggers things. The difference now is with the whole discovery and assessment process is you're doing it for a different purpose. You're not doing it for test scores. You're not doing it for IEPs. You're doing it because you now need to sell this person. So that discovery process is really important, and you need to get it from so many sources. Like just looking in the file, just taking notes at an IEP meeting is not going to be enough information. If possible, to see students in a number of different environments is really important, because nobody acts the same way. And when you're out on a Saturday night, you're not acting the same way as you are, with a Monday morning meeting with your boss. We know how to adjust. Students do too. You see so many different skills and interests in different environments. So if there's a way to see students in different environments, interview a lot of people about that student to get information from a number of perspectives, and then put them in something that we call at Transcend a positive personal profile, which is a way to categorize all the information you get in really positive categories, talking about dreams and goals, interests, skills and talents, your learning styles, your values. Bring all that information that you get and put it in these categories and work with the student on that, so that now you have this whole, just on one page, just a bunch of boxes, and categorize all these features of the student in this positive way. Then that gets us away sort of that deficit-based. Like, what's their IQ? What do they score on this? Do they have a behavior plan? What's the label? What can't they do? None of that stuff is stuff that you can now sell. It's important information to know, but it's not the stuff to focus on. So you really need to figure out what really stands out. Everybody has talents. Everybody has skills. Sometimes our students you can't sit down and ask them. They can't express that. Doesn't mean they don't have them. You have to talk to mom and dad. You have to talk to other teachers. You have to watch them out in different environments and see what really makes them excited, what really makes them, happy, because that's what you're going to try to focus on. So you really need to gather that information kind of in a different way. And then look at some of the challenge areas, because everybody has them, whether they're related to their disability or living situation or whatever it is. You need to know what those challenges are so you can address them. And then you also need to see what weaknesses or things they need to work on can also be turned into assets. So sometimes you'll see work with a student and they're what they're called antisocial, or they don't communicate well. Well, on some jobs where they need to be really focused, sell that. This kid is so focused, not going to waste time chatting with coworkers. Not, because sometimes you get the person who's too chatty, and that's a problem on the job. So you can turn that into an asset if you really know that student. Then the next step is to come up with all this information. What are we going to sell? What does an employer care about? They're not going to care about scores. They're not going to care, they yell at mom but are afraid of dad, scored this on this career assessment test, will break into dance at her favorite song. It's all stuff you collected. But is that really important? So now you have to weed through some of that information. Mm-hmm. So the best way to do that, I think, is to pull out all their features. So that's the stuff that really stood out on that positive personal profile, like cool comments that people made during the interviews, any awards, commendations that they have. Pull all that stuff out. So that's how you start your resume too. You list off all those features. And now figure out, how do those features benefit an employer? And once you have an idea of a student's interest, you have an idea of sort of what jobs you would approach. It gives you guidance, because you shouldn't just go to a mall and knock on every door when you're job developing for someone. You should say, these are the interest areas. Loves animals. So we're going to go to vet offices. We're going to go to the zoo. We're going to go to, the Humane Society, whatever is related to that interest. So now you've narrowed down your focus. And what you should do is get an idea, do a little research on those businesses. You can go, Google is great. You can go online, go on their website, visit them just to get a feel for the culture. Now you know sort of what that business is like. You've got these features of the student. Turn them into benefits to that employer. So somebody who loves animals and has a sixth sense and really works with them, that's an easy benefit to somebody working in a vet's office. The same feature, if somebody is really detail-oriented, that's one you often see on a resume. Detail-oriented in a vet's office, you can say something like, this kid is so detail-oriented that when he's taking samples into the back lab, there's never going to be any errors. He makes sure everything is organized. You're not going to mix up any of your equipment, that kind of thing. Detail-oriented for somebody who wants to work at the Gap. You would say, this student is so detail-oriented that every time somebody comes in and looks at a shirt and leaves it in a lump, She's going to go and fold it so that, you know, the store looks really inviting and neat at all times, and everything's color-coded the way you want your store to look, because that's just the way she thinks. So it's the same feature, but if you can really sell that as a benefit specifically to the employer they're about to interview to, it can be really powerful. And you can teach students to do that themselves as well. So now you have the employers that you should approach based on their interests, and you have almost like a marketing script. You have, these are the features of my student, and this is how they would work great doing this specific job. So now, after you've done that whole presentation, will you hire? It makes much more sense than, hi, nice to meet you. Will you hire my student with a disability? It's not going to be as successful. So if you can really, now you've pulled stuff away from the focus away from disability, and you've put it all on abilities and strengths and ways that it would benefit the employer. Because really when it comes down to it, an employer wants to know, is it going to save me time, money? Are they going to be efficient and good for customer service? I mean, it's really what they're thinking. So if you can take those features and speak to them in those terms, you've just marketed your student. So.
You know, Amy, you have described a process that seems, you know, most people I talk to who are doing job development, produces so much anxiety.
Oh, I know.
And then when I hear you describe it, it sounds like it's creative and person-centered and something that would be fun to do with students and families. It sounds like a fun process.
Absolutely. I absolutely love it.
I know that you also have a particular interest in supporting students in jobs and job development who are also in college. And so I was wondering if you could talk to a little bit about the advantages of doing job development with students who are have intellectual disabilities and are on college campuses.
Okay. Yes. There's been a real boom in students with intellectual disabilities being able to access post-secondary ed, which is great, and it opens up a whole new world, particularly for job developers. Because really, for anybody, college is that next, like that bridge to the real world. Like we all thought we were big stuff when we went to college, but you're still pretty sheltered. It's not quite the real world. And that's exactly what these students need. First of all, the focus on college is career. I mean, people are going to college because they want a job, a career, a better job. So everybody's in the same frame of mind. The expectation for jobs is there. So they're set up with career centers. There's so many different opportunities for networking, because really all this is networking. And when you go from high school and college are two very different things. And you can see even students with ID getting to a college campus and blossoming, because for the first time, they have control over their schedule. They have to decide, you know, if you're late to a college class, who cares? There's nobody except themselves that are responsible for that. It's not like they get the hall pass and go to the principal. Doesn't happen in college. You're responsible for the consequences because you missed information. But that's it. Nobody's going to hunt you down. So it's a next level of responsibility, which is what you need to go to work. These are the skills you need to go to work, and you've been pretty sheltered in special ed. You know, there aren't a lot of real consequences, and there are more so in college. So suddenly they have the ability to control their schedule a little bit. When they have downtime, they can go to the student union, they can go to the library, they have to learn to get around more. They're now interacting with peers on a very different level. Before it was their peers were special ed, and now their peers are college students. Yeah. So the skills that they learn there, and remember I focus so hard on that discovery as the place to start, the things that you can learn about a student by seeing them on a college campus because of the different environments, from the college classroom, which is different than a high school classroom, the cafe, which is just college students, the bookstore, the student union, whatever. These are all brand new environments. So watching students navigate this new system gives you so much information about how they would navigate a job, you know, and then you can go to the Career Center, which is focused on job leads and interview skills and resume writing. And again, they're not then just hearing it from you, because, you know, the teacher's like, well, my teacher's been telling me this for years, but then like someone in the Career Center or a real business person tells them that, and suddenly it's like brilliant. It's like moms with their kids. You say it, and then the teacher says it, and suddenly it makes sense to them. It's that kind of, it's reinforcement of everything you've been teaching them in a bigger environment. For the job developer, if you're tasked with job developing, you have your own little mini community right there in the college campus. You can go to the English department, you can go to the physical ed department, all the departments, and there are job opportunities, even if they're just unpaid. But again, to start with a student who's had no experience and get some internships, it's pretty close to the real world. It's not in your little high school office. And you can do so much career exploration right there on campus. And you have something in common with them. It's easy networking. I'm on this campus too. We're all part of this campus. So it's not a cold call. That's what's so nice about that. None of that's a cold call because you're all wildcats or whatever you are on campus. So it makes your job a lot easier. And it gives you more opportunities to see the students blossom in different jobs before then you go out and sell them. And then it looks great on it's a great selling feature. The kids, they're, college students. You're now selling a college student. And the status of a college student is higher.
Yeah.
And, people have said to me, well, they're not really college students. Well, they are. Are they students? Are they on the college campus? Then they're college students. They don't have to know whether they're matriculating with whatever degree. Yeah. They're on this campus or a member of this community. And so that students tend to have more confidence. If they've had internships on the college campus, that looks good on their resume. And I think it makes it easier for everyone. The expectation is higher in college. So I think those students, they have expectations of work. The people on the campus do. It helps families. Like, if my kid can go to college, maybe my kid can work.
Yeah.
I've seen families come along that way. Never had the expectation their kid would even go to college, much less work. So now they're in college. You're like, and they're going to get a job. And they're like, I guess why not? Mm-hmm. So I think it raises everything to that next level.
Yeah.
But it's still sheltered enough. Because frankly, 17 to 21-year-olds need to be sheltered, disability or not. So it actually is a great environment for doing job development. It's much more fun, and I think the expectation is there for that. So,
well, Amy, thank you very much for your time today.
Sure.
You sure have shown a lot of enthusiasm for this, but also acknowledged, I think, where teachers are at and where transition specialists are at, and really helped us to move from there. So I really appreciate your strategies and resources.
Well, good. I just want them to realize it can be a fun job. It really can.
I'm a believer.
It really is a fun job.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.